Hey, welcome back, YouTube. Today we're going to go over some incredibly interesting and crazy videos talking about whether or not we're in a simulation. We're going to start off kind of simple and then we're going to move on to the more complex ones. So make sure you stick with it. Do me a huge favor, smash the like button on this video to grow the community and let me know in the comment section, do you think we're in a simulation? Let's see what you think at the end of the video. Let's go.
Reality glitches caught on camera.
Fucking glitch. It's a simulation, you guys.
And we're walking through the city, right? Look at this. Big building up there. Big building down here. And what happened, Mr. Drifter? Lost it. Huh? What happened?
What did happen?
Okay, so riddle me this. This cup broke in the dishwasher. This is the shard we found. Exhibit A. And the way that it is... No, put it in. It's rounded, so it's supposed to go like that, with the lip of the cup on top. And that's the way that it would fit, but that's the inverted part. How do you make it fit? And it doesn't fit. You're going viral, baby. The question is, does broken glass invert in the dishwasher? Thank you, and someone help.
Yo, what was going on with that glass piece? If she happened to break another glass that was somehow the other way, boy, it was the perfect shape to fit in that one. And how did that truck get between those two buildings? Was it driving on top of them? I would have liked to seen a video of just before that happened.
Bro, the world's not real. Nothing's real. Like the shit I learned on TikTok. You know, if you take something and you rub it in a corner, it'll fucking stick. Like, say your bed's in a corner, you know, I'm at the hotel, bed's in the corner, bam, remote, just, like...
Human beings keep going. We definitely will create a simulation. It's just a matter of time. So if that's the case, how do we know that we're not in one already? And we really don't. Every day we go to sleep, and every day we wake up, and we assume and we have faith that all that stuff that we remember is really how life went on before we were awake. But we really don't know. According to probability theory, it's more likely that we're in a simulation.
Maybe that's true.
You're assuming that all of the stuff that you know and all the stuff that you experience is 100% real. We are within 100 years away from making something that's indiscernible from what we experience every day. And that's inevitable. Unless we get disrupted by nature, unless we get hit with an asteroid or start a nuclear war, it's inevitable that technology reaches a point where simulation's possible.
What do you think? You think, first off, I would think that we can already run simulations. Definitely not as good as this one, just based on the computing power it would take. I think he's right about that, though. We definitely would.
I used to think we were living in a simulation. Then I talked to some colleagues, did some more reading, and now I feel a little better that we're probably not. The argument for it was you get a real universe, and then people in there get really smart, and they program computers, and they create worlds. And the people in that world don't know that they're fake. All right? And then they evolve, and they develop computers, and they create a world, and they create a world. And this goes all the way down. And so there's the real world and all the worlds that can create worlds, except the last one, which is still working on it. Eventually they'll get there. All right, throw a dart. Chances are you're going to hit a world that's simulated. That's us. But we don't know how to make an actual simulated world where everybody thinks it's real. So either we're the last of those worlds that's still working on it, or we're the first one, which is actually real.
You know, I used to really like Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I still do as a entertainment figure. But with just a little bit of thought into what he says, you can break his logic. It seems like extremely fast. Like, for example, he was saying he used to think we were in a simulation because the thought was if the world developed to the point where it could run a simulation, within that simulation, eventually that simulated world would develop to where they could run their own simulation and so on down the line. And his reasoning is we have to be either the first one or the last one, right? So in his mind, he's saying there's like a 50-50 chance for a simulation because we could either be the first society to create one or we're the last one. But I think what he's not considering is if we could run a simulation, we would get to the point where we could run 1 million simulations at one time for an entire lifespan of the universe and run it in 10 minutes and still get all the data. Which means if we ran it at real time, we could run 1 billion. Right? So there's definitely, if we are in a simulation, the zero reality world or reality world 1 could be running millions of simulations. We could just be in one of those. Why would they only Why would they only run one simulation? They wouldn't. They would run a lot of simulations.
Are we a simulation inside of a simulation inside of a simulation, or are there actual biological beings that are controlling the simulation?
That's a great question. If you look at the way the universe or the multiverse would be set up, it's almost like cells in a human body. Because you look at the cells in our body, it's like a multiverse inside of us. And so it's like we're living in a multiverse which is full of cells. Each universe could be a cell. It could be biological. It could be that we're in a biological body. It could be that we're in a software program. I mean, there's so many possibilities. It's almost endless. But I do know that the fundamental basis of what we're living in is light. Everything you could think of is only a light wave. Matter of fact, due to wave-particle duality, everything only exists as a wave first and then collapses into what we appear to be the illusion of solid matter later. Like right now, you're here. Your home exists as a wave of potentials. It doesn't even exist as a solid structure. Now, if somebody sees it, it collapses instantaneously into a solid structure known as your house. Your house has a specific frequency because of the way the atoms were stacked. So it always collapses into the same structure. Everything you can't see exists as waves, just like in a video game. The next frame only appears when you need it to. We're living in that type of a simulation.
I actually have a lot of thoughts on that. First of all, particle wave duality. Remember that term because we're building here. Okay. The other thought I have is when he says we could be a biological living within a biological. Have you ever noticed how if you look at the overhead of a river, where it starts to fan out into the delta? Or if you look at a tree in the wintertime when it doesn't have leaves? Or if you look at the vein pattern in us, you see a very similar pattern with all of those. And here's where it gets interesting. If you look at a map of the universe and zoom out, right? So let's start at Earth. We're going to zoom out to the Milky Way galaxy. And then you zoom out again from there so you can see other galaxies. Okay. And then you continue to zoom out. You zoom out to galaxy clusters. So you're seeing clusters of galaxies on a map. Okay. You do that again, you get clusters of galaxy clusters. Okay. That has the same pattern. There's something in the way energy moves. I don't know. It'll definitely make you think. Okay, stick with me on this one. Okay, remember, we're building. We're building.
You may know about or remember one of the most famous experiments in the history of physics, the experiment of Thomas Young, the double-slit experiment. It was a real coup in physics and led many scientists into the study of quantum mechanics. If you throw solid balls at a shield with a slit cut into it, a single diffuse strip designating the strike points will appear on the screen behind the shield. If there are 2 slits in the shield, then there will be 2 strips. But how will waves behave if aimed at the shield? They will pass through the slot and spread out. The greatest impact of the wave will be in the line of the slit, as in the case with the balls. But if you add a second slit, everything changes. A number of alternating interference strips will appear on the projection screen. And when we shine light on the two strips, this is exactly what happens. And this is how Mr. Young proved the wave theory of light. If light were corpuscular, like a particle, instead of wave-like, it would behave like the balls, and the screen would show two strips of light corresponding to the two slits. That didn't happen. Later, it turned out that electrons and protons behave exactly the same way, showing that they also seem to exist as waves and not as points. There was one assumption that perhaps light and the others were particles, and that somehow the particles bumped into each other and flew apart. So, to test this, physicists decided to shoot electrons at the target one by one, single file. And what do you think happened? The strangest thing imaginable. The interference pattern still appeared on the screen. It seemed that the single electrons somehow divided into two waves, passed through both slits, then interfered with themselves. Impossible. So physicists tried to find out through which gap the electron actually passes. They installed measuring instruments to check this. Another seeming impossibility occurred. The electrons stopped behaving like waves and began acting like particles, and left a trace on the screen of two distinct strips with no interference. They had to admit something completely mind-blowing, that the fact of our observation or measurement destroyed the wave function of the photons, causing them to become like points, corpuscular. The electron, under the influence of observation, behaved like a particle, flying through one slit and not through two. Interpretations. Well, it certainly looks like the work of a game engine, doesn't it? This might make you think that our world is running like a game on a computer. The computer's power is not enough to calculate the motion of each and every particle, so it uses a simplified model and applies precise calculations only if an observer needs to look at the particle, so as not to break the illusion of the reality of the world for the observer.
Did you guys catch all that? In the earlier video, he was saying your house isn't there until you go there and look at it. Right? This is what he was talking about. If you throw individual electrons through there, which are particles, and you don't look at it with a device, you don't measure it, those particles are waves. But if you look at it, if you measure it, they're particles. This is a repeatable experiment. This has got me on team simulation. Okay. That shows, the last video we watched shows that it would appear from a physics perspective, we are in a simulation. Now watch this.
Proof that we live in a simulation. I have literally found my simulation twin. Like, we were cut from the same cloth, made from the same template, whatever you want to call it, because she is living my life out in California. Some background info. So I live in Houston, Texas. My simulation twin, her name is Caroline. She lives in California, and we've known each other for a while because we both grew up in Dallas, and so we have a lot of mutual friends. But it wasn't until recently where we discovered how similar and how eerily similar our lives are. So this is my family right here. I'm actually Korean, and I'm married to a Taiwanese man, and he is a tech entrepreneur. He started several tech companies, and he develops software. So our kids, we have 3 kids. They're obviously half Taiwanese, half Korean. I have Cameron. She is the oldest. She's 8 years old. Jordan, he is my middle child. And then my son, Atlas, he is 11 weeks old. So this is Caroline's beautiful family, and Caroline is Korean like I am, and she's also married to a Taiwanese man who happens to be in tech and a lot of...
Now, if you're like me, when I first watched this, I thought it was going to be a physical twin of her. That's what I was thinking, but that's not what it is.
Asians are in tech, so that's not that big of a deal. But she has 3 kids, and her oldest is a girl, and then it's followed by 2 boys, just like me. And the age difference between her kids are the same as mine. So her daughter is named Charlotte. My daughter is named Cameron. Her middle son is named Jacob. My son is named Jordan. So yeah, it's not the same name, but it starts with the same letter. And then her youngest is named Chance. And while my son is named Atlas, she actually messaged me saying that Atlas was one of the names that they were considering because her son, her middle son, apparently likes maps a lot. And Atlas is not like a common name. Like no one I know is named Atlas. So the fact that she was considering that name is crazy. So we're both the oldest in our family. I have a sister, she has a brother. So my sister Nina, she went to Pratt Art School in New York. If you know Pratt, it's like a very small, hard to get into art school in New York. And her brother went to Pratt. So my husband is the only child, the golden son, and he unfortunately lost his father to cancer a couple years ago. And my simulation twin, her husband is also the only child, and he lost his mother to cancer the same year. And we both drive a minivan, and not only just a minivan, but we drive the Toyota Pacifica hybrid minivan. And what's crazy is like I actually got this minivan as part of a collab with Driveway. So the fact that she owns that is crazy. To me, this is not a coincidence. Like, we have way too many similarities and very specific similarities. And I really feel like we were like made from the same template, character template for this simulation. But I don't know, call me crazy. What do you guys think?
That to me is really interesting. Stick with me here because at the end of the video, I've got something I want to say. But so perhaps not only from a physics perspective, but from a life path perspective.
These are some actual scientific reasons why we might be living in a simulation, except each one gets weirder. The Planck length is the smallest possible length in the universe. Anything shorter than this crazy number is said to make no meaningful sense. So even though we're used to thinking of reality as this continuous fabric, it's actually made up of these tiny blocks like pixels on a screen. General relativity states that as an object moves faster and faster, its perception of time starts to slow down, which many have commented sounds a lot like a computer processor that's becoming overloaded. Wave-particle duality means that particles normally behave like waves, where they have no particular shape or location, until you actually try to observe one, where they suddenly snap into a definite shape and position. In a simulation, this would be called economizing computing power, where you don't bother simulating something that a player isn't going to notice, until they start deliberately looking at it.
Ain't no way everyone here is a real person. Life is a simulation and a legitimate professor has proved it. James Gates, a theoretical physicist at MIT with 2 bachelor degrees and a PhD, found literal computer code embedded in the most fundamental building blocks of reality called strings. Now, string theory is a tough one, but I'm gonna break it down for you in a way that an 11-year-old would understand. So if you don't get this, hey, go back to grade 5, bro. Alright, so we got my boy Einstein's theory of general relativity, which is basically just a theory of everything big. Planets, gravity, the universe, all the way back to the Big Bang. Then we got the new kid in town, quantum physics. This is the theory of everything small, like particles, atoms, and molecules, where the general laws of physics like gravity don't apply anymore. The same is true the other way around. Quantum laws don't apply to regular-sized physics. So we got general relativity, everything big, and quantum physics, everything small. Like, yo, dig. But both of these realms have the same parent, the Big Bang, at which point everything that is now big used to be small. If the small can become big, then quantum and general relativity need some sort of theory that can unify them. That is string theory. What happens to the big when it's small? What happens when you zoom into an atom? You see protons and neutrons in the center with electrons all around it. Now, what about inside a neutron? Even smaller particles called quarks. So how deep does the scale go? Conventional science will tell you there's nothing inside these quarks. But string theory suggests there's a tiny filament or a string of pure energy that exists inside of them. And just like the string of a guitar vibrates and creates different sound based on its shape and tension, the strings in string theory vibrate. But instead of sound, they produce matter in the form of particles. This completely changes the way you look at the world. Every particle in the universe is just a string vibrating at a different frequency, and every vibrational pattern has its own associated particle. So if you break anything down far enough, we're all just energy vibrating at differing wavelengths to form matter. Although it's still just a theory, this would link general relativity to the quantum realm and form what is known as the theory of everything. Okay, yeah, cool. Now where is this computer code found? When Dr. James Gates took a look at a set of equations derived from string theory, he found binary code. error correcting code used for compressing data on a computer. A sequence of ones and zeros, the same code that is used by popular search engines, which, according to him, who has a PhD in theoretical physics from MIT, doesn't just resemble computer code, it literally is computer code. Meaning, if we break matter and energy down far enough, we eventually find compressing computer code etched into the very fabric of reality. So, who wrote this code? Are we living in, dare I say, a simulation?
Computer code? If you didn't think we were in a simulation in the beginning of the video, just out of curiosity, do you now? If you do, comment end of video, yes. If you don't, comment end of video, no, but then also say why, because I'm honestly really curious. I know I don't know everything. And on top of that, in case somebody feels like this somehow interrupts the idea of religion and God and spirituality, I don't think so. Because for whatever reason, a living thing needs to observe this stuff in order for it to become matter. Right? A living thing. It can't just be a rock and a rock. Right? Because when they ran the double slit experiment, it wasn't until it was measured that was going to be seen by a person that it ran the particle function instead of the wave function in that computer. Okay? So for some reason, it responds to living beings. Boy, that really makes me think a lot about like an AI robot and stuff like that. What if there were no living beings and it was all AI robots? Anyways, that is getting into the weeds. So I personally believe in God. I believe we have souls. I believe there's spirit entities that exist. And I also believe we're in a simulation, which I also believe links up with a lot of biblical text, even though it doesn't use the word simulation. All right, that is it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this, and I will see you in the next one.